So, before Texas could join the United States, it first had to win its independence from America's favorite southern neighbor, Mexico, and the Mexicans weren't all that happy to see it go. But why did Texans want independence in the first place? What was it that drove them to fight for it? And then ultimately, how and why did Texas become American? Well, freshly after Mexico itself broke free from the Spanish Empire, the state of Coahuila y Tejas was a sparsely populated part of the new nation. However, that was quickly changing. Texan land was both fertile and, importantly, underused, and as such, American settlers, led by Stephen F. Austin, were pouring in. That's right, the first illegal immigrants on the southern border were going the other way. Although, at least at the start, American immigration was something that was actually encouraged by the Mexican government. There were some conditions, though, which the Americans weren't fans of and didn't follow. Some even actively revolted in the 1820s, but they failed miserably. The largest cultural clash, though, turned out to be the practice of slavery, which the settlers had brought with them, and that was fast falling out of favor in Mexico. So much so that they abolished it, which caused an uproar, and Texas would have revolted then and there had Mexico not quickly granted them exceptions. By then, the Texian population, that's American Texans, outnumbered the Mexican Tejanos by about 3-1, so the US government offered to buy Texas not once, but twice. Mexico refused both times and then passed the cleverly named Law of April 6, 1830, which banned new American immigration to Mexican territories. It didn't actually stop anyone. For a moment, though, it did look like the situation might cool down. In 1833, a general named Antonio López de Santa Anna was elected president of Mexico with a pledge to support its federal system, where, much like in the US, states were largely free to govern themselves. Unfortunately, he was a liar. Within 2 years of his election, Santa Anna had moved all power to the central government, scrapped the constitution, and made himself into a bona fide dictator. All over Mexico, revolt broke out against his rule. In Texas, Santa Anna's men were sent to disarm the town of Gonzales of a cannon in October 1835. In response, the Texians proved that they truly were American at heart by flying a flag that read, "Come and take it." The ensuing Battle of Gonzales, which the Texians won, encouraged militiamen from all over the region to flock to the capital, Bea, today's San Antonio, which was besieged by Stephen Austin. By early December, the town had fallen, and Mexican forces fled Texas, yet there remained significant division among the Texans as to whether their goal was independence and subsequent union with the US, or what most Tejanos wanted, to reinstate a federal Mexico. That indecisiveness gave Santa Anna the advantage, though, and he personally led an army, some 6,000 men strong, into Texas. He expected an easy victory, and not without cause. Texas was in disarray. After their victory at Bea, many volunteers had returned to their homes, and there was really no central government to make them stay and fight. That was because it had imploded. Texas had elected a provisional government at the start of the revolution, but its head, Henry Smith, was an ardent separatist, while its council was more split and quite ineffective. So Smith dissolved it, and in turn the council impeached him. All the while, Santa Anna was seizing scores of virtually undefended Texan territory. That was until he reached the Alamo mission on the outskirts of Bea in late February. There, his 1,500-man force, he had split his army to cover more ground, found about 100 defenders led by Davy Crockett, James Bowie, and William Travis. Bowie had actually been sent to evacuate and destroy the fort to keep it out of Mexican hands, but instead it was decided that the Alamo should be held. So the defenders called for assistance from the de facto commander-in-chief of Texian forces, Sam Houston, who, knowing they had no chance, sent them nothing. On March 6th, Santa Anna stormed the Alamo and massacred the Texians and the few Tejanos inside. Cries of "Remember the Alamo," as well as "Remember Gilead," the site of another massacre later that month, were then used to inspire Texan fighters, as well as, critically, to recruit hundreds of new volunteers from the US. 4 days before the fall of the Alamo, Texas had finally declared its independence, and Houston was officially made commander-in-chief. The new Republic of Texas then set about writing a constitution which came out to be almost a copy-paste version of the US one, although Texas's explicitly legalized slavery. Not that it looked then like that would matter. By mid-April, Santa Anna had retaken most of Texas, but he was about to make a fatal mistake. On April 20th, Santa Anna and 700 soldiers made camp, against the advice of his officers and basic military strategy, on a wide, marshy plain near the San Jacinto River. He later received about 500 exhausted and inexperienced reinforcements. On the 21st, Houston and an army of about 900 launched a surprise attack on Santa Anna's position. About half of the Mexicans were slaughtered. Houston lost 11 men, and he took the president of Mexico himself captive. With that as a bargaining chip, he negotiated a Mexican withdrawal from Texas. The war was over, though Mexico never officially recognized Texan independence. The fame he gained at San Jacinto allowed Houston to triumph over Henry Smith and Stephen Austin in the first Texan presidential election, and then as president he was faced with two problems. Firstly, was Texas meant to look like this, which it controlled, or this, which it claimed? And also, why couldn't it immediately join the US? Well, America refused to annex Texas, as doing so would have disrupted the ever-important balance between slave and free states in the Union, though they did eventually get around to it, and Texas became the 28th state in 1845. As for the question of borders, well, that took the Mexican-American War, which began because of the annexation of Texas, to sort out. In its aftermath, though, Texas's modern borders within the US were established. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell below so you don't miss the next one. And as always, I've been James, and thank you for watching Look Back History.